Show. It's the Reedie Zee Show. Reedie Zee Show. It's the Reedie Zee Show. Reedie Zee Show. Reedie Zee Show.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Reedie Zee, we're back for another edition of Monday Command, where we're going to discuss this 2025 draft class, all five of them, in great detail today. And also, we got some news, guys. I think y'all gonna like this. We're back, but Reedie Zee starts now.
It's the Reedie Zee Show. Reedie Zee Show. It's the Reedie Zee Show. Reedie Zee Show. Reedie Zee Show.
Reedie Zee, we're back. You're on mute, Z. We're back and you on mute, bro. What's up? Come on, man.
My bad. Yeah, I'm over excited, man. I'm over excited. They got a big announcement today. I'm sneakily sold on this draft class too. So I've been calling Reedie all weekend. Keep talking about certain guys, and you know, every year I gotta have me one that I think is gonna be a sleeper and my favorite pick of the draft. And you know, I'm excited, man. I'm happy to be back in the fold of some news and some movement. How about you, bro?
Yeah, man. You know, the draft is the draft, but I think I walked away with it feeling okay about it. You know, starting off first in the first round, I really wasn't necessarily excited when the news came down and we sat there and we waited for 3 hours and then we took a tackle. I think we jokingly talked about this on the Burgundy breakdown last week with John from Ball in the Burgundy podcast, as well as Juan Gotti from Juan Gotti Talking Sports. But you know, as I slept on it, great pick. You know, the last thing I think that resonates in everybody's minds is that Mike Green clip with Connolly. But I'm gonna just tell you guys, it's one rep. You know, things happen. You know, between them white lines, but on that grass. So optimistically excited about the five draft picks that we were able to bring in here. I think we kind of like were handcuffed after we took the second pick, where we took the cornerback. But we didn't get more picks, but I think the value for what we got per your guy Mel Kiper Jr. I think we had a good draft.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like we talked about the other day, leading up to the draft, we somehow how it was going to be a long night for Thursday. We sat there, waited for us to get a pick in. And as you see, the board was pretty much going in our favor. A lot of guys that we had had our eyes on was kind of falling, early on. And I mean, of course, I think like the first guy to get taken that kind of slightly blew me was Hampton when he got picked kind of early on. And then I'm like, all right. So the running back options are still there kind of in a sense. We still got the edge options, And then we kind of got to that point when we were ready to pick. My guy, Mike Green, was on the board. And I just knew that pick flying in, call it in. We get Mike Green, and then Will Johnson was, Reedie kind of stopped putting Will Johnson on my radar. Like, man, Will Johnson's still on the board. I mean, yeah, if he stay healthy, man, he like that. Yeah. From Michigan, and I remember us talking about him. So I'm like, shit. Like I told Reedie, I'm already in on my phone. I'm dialing up the post because in this world you want to be first. So I'm
Donovan
dialing.
Rocky was still there too.
Yeah, so it was options. So I had my artwork already together, and boom, with the first pick, the 29th overall in the NFL draft, the Washington Commanders select Josh Connolly Jr. tackle Oregon. Ooh. And it's just like hit me like, damn, every year we get this rush about these certain guys we know we just don't pick. And then they
Facts.
come with a tackle. You like,
Facts.
but what I mean, once they kind of, and for me, it was a quicker rebound because once they kind of started showing his highlights, and immediately I said, well, got to protect that asset. The Giants had just went and got Abdul Carter. We know they got Thibodeau. I mean, the Eagles, they end up getting another guy, who they end up getting after us, but we already know what their D line is like. The Cowboys end up snatching the DN. So it's like, oh, we got to get a tackle. So I mean, in my head, I'm like, well, we combating that. So it was a good feeling to kind of know that we got a tackle and figure it's an athletic guy. I mean, younger guy that they said he was he was a high prospect. So I'm not mad at it. I mean, we'll see how it pans out, but he seems to be a good kid. He seems to be strong. He seems to have that work ethic. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was the same thing for me. Like, I'm getting excited because I'm like, oh, this is people we thought was going to be long gone was still on the board. And then, like you said, my guy was Will Johnson out of Michigan. So when he's on the board, I'm like, oh, we turn the pick in, run and turn it in, AP, run and turn it in. Then it comes out Josh Connolly Jr. tackle Oregon. And I'm like, isn't that the same tackle that got steamrolled in the Reese's Senior Bowl? And I go look, and it's him. And then I hop on Ball in the Burgundies. They did a live reaction, and John was like, Connolly Jr. Really? And I'm just sitting there just like, oh my God. Then I said, let me look at the highlights. And then I go look at the highlights and stuff like that. And then I started hearing what they're saying about, not giving up sacks and just all of the upside, the athletic ability and things of that nature. So then I was like, it makes sense. But it goes back to what I was saying last week that per John Keim from ESPN, insider for the Commanders, that Washington probably looked to draft an offensive lineman in this draft, but I didn't know it was going to be first round. But like you said, it makes sense. So it is what it is. So I think as I slept on it the next morning, I kind of was on board. But it's always one of them things, and I guess it's PTSD from, passing on guys, and then they turn out to be absolute studs in this league. So I think that was that. But Connolly gives you a lot of upside. Like he's 20 years old, about to be 21, 6'4", 315. He only allowed 1 sack and 5 pressures in 2024. And like he alluded to also in his presser, he's used to winning. I think he lost 6 games in the University of Oregon in 3 years. And I was saying that if he came back for this year, he would have been a top 5 pick in the upcoming draft. So I think we might have snatched us one a little early. So that was just my sentiments on the first round pick. So then I said, well, it's time to go to sleep. Let's, see what we do the next day. And then immediately the running backs just I think it was like the first 2 picks just went off the board. And I was looking in the group chat and they're like, yeah, Amari Hampton is gone. So I was like, damn, that's Juan's man. He's gone. And then it just was going on and on and on and on. And it just was like, well, okay, let's see what we do. And then, people started getting off the board, people that we thought we wanted. But I thought we would, end up trading out of that pick at 61 and trying to garner some more picks. But I'm going to let you go, and then I'll talk about that later.
Yeah, and then at 61, I mean, Mike Green didn't go until like 3 picks before that. So same center situation where I'm sitting there, I'm waiting. I'm like, well, shit, we about to strike. Mike Green about to fall to us in a second. Boom. The Ravens picked him. So I'm like, all right, shit. Now you got to rebound. Of course, all the pressure, everybody keeps saying, we need an edge, we need to do this, we need to do this, do that. Then we get to 61 and boom, Adam Peters picked the corner. Trey Amos, Ole Miss. They talked about his size, they talked about his speed, and people were saying like, "Man, youngin kind of sneaky." So it was definitely again one of those situations where it's like, all right, we sit around and we waiting, and who we think we gonna get, it just don't happen. And one of the things Peter's talked about in the pressure, because now this is day two, and that's the only pick we had day two. If I'm not, yeah, because day two was second and third round. So pretty much, you know what I mean? After that, AP came out and said it. He was like, you know, the edge guys we was looking at went a few picks before us. You know, we got to this point and we had offers to trade back, but we just felt Trey Amos was just too good of a player to pass up on. So we stayed and took our pick. Just like with Connolly, they even talked about, just kind of revert back. They loved Connolly. They even Cliff Kingsbury left a note on his desk, take the tackle from Oregon earlier in the week. And he said that they as a team, as a, you know, the management group or however, him and the coaches or whatever, the scout team, all that, they basically said that if Connolly was there at 29, they wasn't trading out, they was gonna take him. And in the same sense, he said if Trey Amos was there at 61, they just wasn't gonna trade out, they was gonna take him. So I mean, they considered moving up and all that, but again, we didn't have a lot of assets to move up. So trading back definitely was on the board, but you know, you had to. They stuck to their board. They went BPA. They didn't focus just on need. They wanted to draft athletes, guys that can help this team. And you know, I mean, he impressed at the NFL Combine. He ran a 4.3, a 4.43 in a 40, 32.5-inch vertical jump, and a 126-inch broad jump. So I mean, he's expected to be potentially a starter opposite of Lattimore, and maybe to kind of move Mikey in the slot. So you know, to the nickel. I mean, but we'll see how that folds out. But it's looking like with the first two picks, we got 2 day one starters.
Yeah, yeah, it was the same thing for me. Kind of sitting there like, who is Trey Amos? And I'm just like, I remember the name, but when they was like he played at Louisiana Lafayette, then he went to Alabama. I was like, I remember that Amos name from Alabama. That was a DB, and I said, oh, that was him. Then he transferred to Ole Miss, so it kind of like played back in my mind. Was like, okay, I know who he is. And then you get to watching the highlights and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, he's kind of like a rangy corner. Look like he got some speed, and some ability, you know. And then they just started just talking about how good of a pick it was, and just how good of a player he was. And I did a little bit more further research on him, and you look at the intangibles that he possesses. 6'1", long arms, almost 200 pounds. He didn't have the direct track, but he kind of balled at a smaller school. Then went to Alabama, and then he left because Saban retired, and then that's how he ended up at Ole Miss. And he kind of hooped at Ole Miss, but then I was like, well, where are the highlights from Alabama and Lafayette? Because I'm not really seeing them. I was just saying really like the Ole Miss highlights. So then I dug and then I found the highlights, and I was like, okay, all right, he might be sneaky. Not one of the necessarily big names that we were looking for or we were thinking about, but might be a solid player. And then I had to just remember to myself, a lot of times some of the big names don't pan out. Sometimes they do pan out. But look at Terry McLaurin. We got him in the third round, and look what he turned into. So, definitely I'll take it, where we got him at, and like you said, they said basically that he would have they were thinking about taking him with the first round pick if it wasn't for the, taking the offensive tackle. So, I mean, that also says a lot about where he was on their board. If you're thinking about taking him with your first round pick, and then you ended up getting him in the second, so that might have been somebody that they really wanted. But then also in the fourth round, we were able to come back. It seemed like it was a long time in between picking. It was a little stressful. Everybody was coming off the board.
Day 3 now.
Yeah, everybody, that we was looking at was just coming off the board, and then you saying what the Bears are doing, and I'm like, damn, they building for Caleb over there. I'm like, shit, I don't know. I like what they doing over there. Then I see the Cowboys doing, and the Eagles is the Eagles, and even the Johnson is sneaking in some pick. Then I'm like, the Rams is out here, pulling some good players, and I'm like, shit, We just sitting there waiting. And then next thing you know, they come back and they say Jalen Lane. I'm like, Jalen Lane? Who? Like, then they run the highlight package or whatever. So at that point, I didn't know. I never heard of him. So I had to look him up. So it was kind of like the same thing or whatever. But I think they ran the clips and they showed where our special teams coach was so excited. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, he's going to be a special teamer or probably our punt returner, maybe / kick returner guy. Also, he can contribute on the offensive side. It wasn't strictly for the wide receiver position.
Yeah. The first thing Reedie did was call me and was like, "So is this burner you've been asking about?" Like, I hope so. I don't fucking know. I mean, I don't know. He's 5'9". I don't know how much. I mean, unless he's smoking shit, then I don't. I mean, I don't know. So we'll see. But from what you see, I mean, he was a leader, high character guy at VTech. Like I said, last year he had 38 receptions, 466 and 2 touchdowns. But over his career in college, he had 2,532 receiving yards on 18 touchdowns. Like you said, he contributes as a punt returner. I mean, quick, fast guy. Great acceleration from what we saw in the highlights. But I mean, the verdict kind of out. I mean, in my head, I'm thinking like a 4th round pick for just a special team guy. Like, he better be dominant. You know what I mean? So we'll kind of see how that pans out. But I think overall, I mean, like I said, we'll see. But I think as he developed, he could potentially turn into a slot guy. I mean, they mentioned using him in the gunner positions. We were running those reverses and screens and stuff like that. So he may be the new Diami as far as the screen man on the offense when he do see the field. But I mean, again, it just speaks on the high. A lot of these guys that we pick, everyone's just talking about their character and how high, their leadership. So we're picking like a lot of team captains and guys with some, that's going to enhance the culture.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, but I'm trying to share what I sent to the group chat the other day, but it's not working. Hold on, give me a second. But go ahead, Z. Keep. I'm gonna try to see if I can share
some of
this.
the comments. I'm tapping first on the YouTube side. Joseph G mentioned a little while ago, you got to protect the most important piece of your offense, and that being Jaden Daniels. Absolutely. Totally agree there. Bison for life. I like the picks overall. The running back from Arizona, New Mexico is definitely a steal in the later rounds. I feel the same way, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about it, when we bring them up. And then on the IG side, let's see. Everyone we pick had one of the top RAS scores at their positions. It's not about just leadership. Lane ran a 4.3. He's a burner. Roland definitely pumping that VTech. Amos was the best pick at 61. He was the best player available in a position of need. Roland jumped in, let him cook. Good money on the O-line. Man, the edge situation in free agency and the draft was horrible. I'm glad we wasted little to no assets on that position this time around. I'm so glad we got grown-ups in the room, because in the past we would have made a move just out of boredom. So yeah, where you got your presentation up?
No, I don't have it. But basically, I was going to show the comparison of they compared him to Deshaun Jackson and coming out. So basically, they were saying, height, weight, measurables are about the same, 5'10". Djax was 169. This guy is 191. So therefore, he's fairly bigger than him. Pause. The arm length is 31 and a half for him, 29 and 3/4 for Djax. The hands are bigger. Pause. 9 and 3/8 for Djax, 9 and 7/8 for him. Then we get into the 40-yard dash. Djax ran a 4.35. This guy ran a 4.34. In the 10-yard split, Djax ran a 1.55. He ran a 1.5. So broad jump, everything, all of the three cones, everything is just favorable for this guy. So now if he can give me the same athletic ability as a Djax, I will take it, because that is truly a take the top off speed that he has at 4.3.
Yeah, totally agree there. And that kind of did spark a conversation in the group chat, and everybody was saying, how much I love Djax and all that. So I should definitely love this pick. I mean, Djax also possessed a great ability to find the football and come down with the football when the ball's in the air. So we'll see how he does, how Lane does, but I mean, we'll see. And I mean, I know he'll be mainly, like the punt returner, and I don't know if they can put him on kickoff, but not, I mean, kick return or not. But offensively, we'll see what he be able to kind of sprinkle in and do.
Yeah. And then on the screen right now, these are the remaining picks in the round 6. We took the linebacker out of UCLA, a guy that was there with Ken Norton Jr., UCLA guy, a Bruin, just as well as Adam Peters. There was some excitement with this guy, so he's looking to come in and solidify that Buffalo nickel position, give us a little bit more ability. They're saying he's our Cooper DeJean of for the Commanders. I don't know. The verdict is still out on that, but he looks like he's a solid player. And then rounding up the 7th round, I'm gonna let you
Hold on. Madrano, slow down on Madrano real quick. They say he sent Norton a text and said, "Come get me." And Ken Norton put that on that, holler at Peters or whatever, and they drafted him. He was the fastest 40 in the combine
for
for
linebackers.
linebackers. He ran a 4.46. So there, when I saw the speed, it automatically excited me. One thing that Reedie does talk about a lot is, well, our linebackers, we lack that sideline to sideline speed. So Madrano is going to be a guy that, and he even talked about it. And Reedie, actually, you on the page, you might be able to bring up what his interview real quick. But they was asking, it's on our IG, but they was just asking him about, what I mean, covering tight ends, running backs, and things of that nature. So he kind of went into it a little bit, but we about to bring it up real quick.
Hold on.
Any special teams, whether that's all four. I'm just ready to go head first into that. And then on the defensive role, whether they want to stay base, I can play that big nickel. And I've done that with Coach Norton in the room. And I've also played with Coach Norton in the room. So, I think it gives the defense a little bit more room to kind of stay base when they get into 11 personnel, because I'm confident in what I can do.
And knowing you'll be here with Bobby Wagner and Frank Louvu, how much excitement is that at?
Yeah, I'm excited, right? You get a guy that is going to be in the Hall of Fame one day with Bobby Wagner, and you get to learn from a vet, and I can't wait. And I've learned from him before, and I just can't wait to get in that room and spend every single day with them, and just learn ball and get into the play.
Yeah, so I mean, the verdict, like we said, the verdict is definitely out on all these guys, really. But I'm expecting him to definitely be a contributor on special teams. They talk about him being that Buffalo nickel safety, covering them tight ends, covering the running backs, maybe even a receiver here or there. I mean, I also heard rumblings, really favorite word, rumblings of no, you say rumblings, but rumblings.
Rumblings.
But yeah, I heard rumblings that I mean, he could be a guy that could be I think Linnell said this, that I mean, he could be a guy to kind of give us with that Jeremy Chin, as far as being on the field a lot, as far as you know what I mean, kind of because Jeremy Chin played a high percent of the snaps. We still need a safety in a sense, especially on a free. You know what I mean? We have Quan Martin, but after Quan Martin, what else do we have? So having a safety that has speed, that can cover, and that can be out there in space and make plays. This is a guy to kind of, you know what I mean, to keep an eye on. I mean, he's 6th-round pick. Not saying he's about to be all world, but you know, based on his athletic ability, it looks like he could potentially do some things. So it's one to keep an eye on. And then, last but not least, my favorite pick of the draft, Mr. Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, running back Arizona. He played in New Mexico as well. He missed his last year at Arizona due to eligibility issues. He did play in the Senior Bowl, 5'11", 208. He had a standout performance in that East-West Shrine Bowl. At the combine, he ran a 4.45 and a 40, an impressive 41 and a half vertical. His addition brings competition to the running back group and potential contributions on special teams. But I personally feel that he's going to get his running back room some bump. You know what I mean? We got a clip on the page where, you know, it shows his highlights, and physical guy, he's shifty. We all year long, and I always revert back to what my partner says. And I make sure I bring them forth on here. But in our conversations, my partner always talk about our running backs don't have that no excuse me, can't make nobody miss. And I think this guy gives us that. I think it's gonna be it was a steal of the draft. And I feel like he failed due to not having you know, he didn't really play last year. So I think Adam Peters pulled a slick one with this one. And I think my prediction, this is the steal and the sneakiest move of the draft for us. And he could potentially be a real contributor to our backfield. And I think so. I believe it. Breakaway speed there. Look at the vision. I think he's gonna pan out. Well, looking at this though, Reedie, what you think?
So here's the thing on him. And he's a Z guy. He reminds me a lot of Gibby. And I immediately said that to Z, and I said, that's why you like him so much. That's why you sold on him, because he kind of has that same running style. So immediately when I first went and watched the tape when we seen him, I wasn't very impressed. And I'm gonna tell you why. It wasn't that he wasn't I don't think that he could, you know, possibly pan out. It's just the fact that I want 4.3 speed. I want 4.2 speed. Like, to me on film, he didn't look like he was that fast. On some of these, you know, breakaways or whatever. He kind of looked like he had a little next level, but he does have that, you know what I'm saying? Those little intricate cuts and stuff like that. Saquon Barkley or Bucky Irvin or players of their caliber, Jahmyr Gibbs type player. But we'll see. You know, the jury is still out on this prospect in the 7th round. You know, hats off to him. You know, the journey to the league wasn't, you know, necessarily a favorable one to him, but he got here. And I do think he's kind of sneaky, but I got to see more. I got to see more.
Yeah, and I mean, he said it himself. He's excited to be here, and he said it. Washington, you got a dog. So he putting it out there that he ain't no slouch, and rightfully so. So that's my favorite pick of the draft, though. Piggyback on it. Yeah, Lane is gonna be a punt return on kick return of the draft. Got me hyped for this season. Absolutely. Let's see what the IG side saying real quick before we jump into the stadium talk. Go Commanders, die hard fan. So RFK 2.0. How excited are you?
I'm really excited. You know, when the news came out a couple of weeks ago, I was coming from work and I was just like, oh wow. Came out, it was talking about, you know, what the contribution from the team was going to be around 2 billion. The city was going to contribute about 800 million or whatever. But today it kind of like, you know, broke it down a little bit more in detail and kind of like, you know, solidified what we were saying. It wasn't just necessarily rumors within you know, circles or whatever. So it shows a commitment. You know, all of the tea leaves was kind of like falling towards us going back to the RFK, but I think it's the best site for us, you know what I'm saying? And you know, in the mix. And it just brings back that history and that, you know, that what this team is about over the years, over the decades and stuff in Washington. And I think it's a win for everybody as well as Maryland and, you know, and Virginia. But the next hurdle is just going to be, you know, passing the DC Council. 4 members were in, you know, at the press conference today. The council chair made it known that he is not necessarily on board, but he's waiting to see the document that, you know, was released today with all of the particulars and stuff like that. But he's not saying that he's not going to be on board, but, you know, we will see. Moving forward, here's a, you know, a rendering of it. I'm hearing that it's supposed to be a glass roof. You know, you can see the Capitol in the background. It's looking sweet. You know, Z called me last night and was like, you know, when it said it was going to come out today, it was like, yo, we're not letting these season tickets go. We are keeping these season tickets no matter what happens. And I doubled down on that today. I said, yeah, you had to figure some things out, but these season tickets is staying in the pocket. Like, because before it used to be a 25-year wait list to get on. And, you know, they're going to come out in droves to try to get, you know, to get their hands on this. 2030 is the, she said, fiscal year 2030 completion. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Definitely looking forward to it. Excited for the announcement today. Been excited all leading up to it. Like Reedie said, I called him late last night to talk about it. You know, what this means for us as a fan base, for us kind of channeling back to our kid days, just the excitement and the you know what I mean, getting back to DC. This rendering just kind of like took it over the top for me. You know what I mean, to have this glass look and to see the Capitol right there. I don't know, Brady. We might need to get some end zone seats so we can look straight at the Capitol.
I was thinking the same thing when I seen this, and I said, shit, I might have to go down the end zone. I like how that look right there. I ain't gonna hold you.
Reedie is not an end zone.
I'm not an end zone guy.
He's not an end zone seat guy. I tell him all the time, it's still a good seat. But I don't know. That's beautiful, man. So I think it's gonna be dope for the city. You know what I mean? In the conference, they definitely brought forth you know, the worries because it's like $3.7 billion deal. How the funding is gonna be broken down is that you know, Josh Harris and the Commanders are putting up 2.5 to 2.7 billion up, and then the city is going to be covering
about one.
Yeah, roughly under 1 billion. And you know, the taxpayers is going to definitely be taxed for it. But one thing that Muriel Bowser assured, and you know, I'm not a big Muriel Bowser person, so but she did assure that there's going to be a junior sports complex built around it for the kids to go to. Like she even mentioned when they run track, when they have their activities, when they're doing cheerleaders, they're doing all those different things. All our DC kids are going to Maryland, i.e., the sports complex, to participate in things, and this brings that back to the city. It's also going to offer jobs and businesses. They're talking about 92 new restaurants. You know, even in the construction process, is going to offer jobs. Events DC is going to be running it as far as like the, you know, the parking and all that. So it just seems like it's going, as much as it's a hit on the taxpayers, it's also going to be a benefit and a reward at some point. One of the things that I feel like, well, what she said, there's an estimated of 14,000 construction jobs, and potentially 2,000 permanent. It's going to be housing built. It's going to be parks, hotels, retail around it. The whole infrastructure itself is going to be new. I'm hoping, and I've been saying this for years, and I always said this to Reedie, I just hope that they do it like in Atlanta, where when you're walking from the parking lot to the stadium, you have to go over traffic. So I'm hoping that they build like a walking bridge to go over East Capitol. That way it doesn't stop the traffic. Kind of like in Philly, everything is on ground. And, the traffic around the stadium is horrible in Philly. Same thing in Baltimore. So I'm just hoping, Baltimore does have a little walk bridge, but on the main street at the Ravens Stadium, it's just chaos. So I'm just hoping that they do properly direct the traffic in ways where it just won't make slow up the traffic too much. It's always going to be traffic on game days. Even at FedEx Field right now, it takes us a long damn time to get out of there. But it's only 8 games a year. I don't think it's going to be through the roof, but I do believe the construction process may cause a little rift, with people in the area. But I think all in all, come 2030, we winning games, Jaden is throwing touchdowns and all those things. The fans are going to love it. And like you said, with the benefits that she brought forth, if she stands on that and stay true to that, I think that it'll be a great thing for us and the city.
Yeah, just to go back on that about the money, one of the reporters was asking about, the tax dollars, and that's one of the big things that they always kind of consider when there are projects of this about, taxpayer dollars that are going to be spent for stadiums. And she said, let's be clear, basically, like the Commanders are basically taking on most of this, situation. Like we're paying for like the infrastructure as far as the roads and the and the other stuff. And then she's like about the housing that's going to be around it, and like you said, the sports complex for the kids and things of that nature. So like really realistically, like if the residents of the district have an issue for the stadium itself, the Commanders are really footing the bill for their own stadium. Like what the city is paying for is all going towards the city and to bring jobs and economic growth and stuff like that to the city. So I would think that people shouldn't have an issue with it, because if it was like she said in the press conference, like we can't sit around and wait for another big massive something to come through here and it's 180 acres just dormant. You know what I mean? Like the stadium is just one thing, but you're not really contributing to the stadium. You're contributing to everything else that's going to go around this, and to beautify this area and bring Ward 7 up where it should be in the landscape. And then also, another point that stood out to me, I believe it was 8,000 or 5,000 parking spots for tailgating. Then there will be 2 parking garages that they're going to build. And then everybody was there. The person in charge of Metro. So it seems like everybody is on board for this project. It seems like it just brings a lot to the city. And she did say that people that live around there don't have to worry about getting put out or being displaced, because we're talking about, there was a stadium there before. So they're probably building in the same exact spot once it's demolished. And it makes sense to do that because all of that infrastructure is already there when it comes to your plumbing and all the things of that nature, electrical grids and all of that that's going to the stadium. So they don't really have to hash that out. All they have to do is really probably upgrade, and get into code for now than what it was before. So I think it's a win-win for everybody. And, if we're being honest, like they asked about the, the budget and stuff like that. And she kind of put it back on Congress and said that, Congress has to fix the budget for fiscal year 2025, but we're talking about 2026. They have to invest in the district and into, people in the community. And like you said, all of these jobs and all of these things that this project is going to bring. The stadium is just a little part, and that will only take up 15% of the actual total land mass of this development. So it's good. Seems like this is a a staggering deal, and it kind of works better for the city than it is the Commanders in a sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And let me hop and see. I totally agree. See if anybody on this end made any comments on the stadium itself. No. And we had no comments there. But we actually, showed the stadium showed the conference on our page. Let me stop sharing. Showed the conference on our page. And it was definitely exciting, man. Reedie was calling me, and I'm like, I'm doubting. Let me call you back. So what I mean, it was one of those things. It's just I feel like a kid again, man. I'm excited, bro. I'm really excited. Yeah. But yeah, anything else to touch? Before we leave, the NFL is dead wrong for what they did to Shador Sanders. Dead wrong, and then to turn around and use this man as all this promo and his family. Like if you go on the NFL page, he's everywhere. I'm sure the views for the NFL draft this year were through the roof. Everybody waiting on Shador to get drafted for him to go to 5th round. It was just sad. I understand that they said he may have came across a little cocky, a little arrogant, all these different things. I look at it as just confidence. I look at it, he come from a product of confidence, and a man that during the times where people weren't outspoken and, highly speaking of themselves, like who knew their worth and demanded what they wanted. Prime never, he never held his lip about anything. And it sprinkled down to his son. So I just feel like they handled that Shador situation wrong. I hope he turns up. But yeah, the NFL did wrong. Period.
Yeah, I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna double down. I kind of had a heated debate with my wife about the situation. They said what they did to him was wrong, and I'm coming from a strictly football perspective. I necessarily wasn't sold on Shador as a top pick in this draft. Just as me personally, I'm talking about strictly football. I'm talking about throwing the football, his abilities on the field. I'm one of the people that did say that he does come off a little bit cocky, a little bit outlandish, but my wife was kind of saying like he should because, as a African American, his father is teaching him, just don't settle for anything or whatever. But my thought process on this is that this is a job interview. We wouldn't tell our kids to go on a job interview and to act in the way that they say he acted. Now, I don't know totally what's true and what's not true, so I'm not going to speak on that. But from what they were saying, he was just very, cocky, and just the way he was talking to him, like, nah, like I get it. And, the only other example we have of this is we can go back to Eli and Eli Manning's situation where he refused to play for the Chargers, and then they ended up trading him to with the swap with Phillip Rivers to New York. So, that being said, I feel like I thought he wasn't a first round talent. If we kind of do a compare and contrast to all of the people that went in the first round last year at quarterback position, I don't think neither Cam Ward or Shador would have failed. So they probably would have failed like around where Shador went this year, around the 4th, 5th round. If we put them in that draft class, but obviously different draft, different things. I thought that the NFL was dead wrong what they did after, the first round. I thought he should have went later in the first round, but just not. I didn't think he was a top 10 pick. But I just wanted to say that just to be clear with everybody. But what they did was just dead wrong. But I didn't think it warranted as far as it went. And I think they were trying to send a message to college football players like nobody's, like Ocho Cinco said, nobody's bigger than the program. That being the NFL, itself, entity in the NFL. But then at the same time, we do have to understand that everyone is not going to draft him because only a certain number of teams needed quarterbacks. So those teams would have been in the winning for a quarterback. But I thought he would go to New York. When they came back in and they brought in Dart, I just was like, wow, I couldn't believe that. I thought he was going to go to New York. But apparently he, had some issues on that interview. But that's just my stance on it.
Yeah, no question, no question. But that picture you just brought up, beautiful. And one of the things JP mentioned too, we have the potential to have some boat gating.
So what?
Think about that. Tailgating from the boat. Like at the boat's dock, pull up to the field on the boat.
That might be a nice little thing. That is nice. That's lit.
Yeah, I don't know if you peeped on the picture how it's up against the water like that.
Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah, that's one thing JP mentioned earlier too. So it's up, man. It's up.
Yeah, I'm with you too, Bison for life. Them season tickets will probably be a little pricey, but Josh assured everyone that that's one thing they look at with what's his name, the new president, Z.
My man Klaus. Mark Klaus.
Mark Klaus. They talk about it every year, about trying to keep the ticket prices somewhere where it's sustainable for people within their family. He alluded to that he has a family, so he understands, But at the end of the day, I get it. It's a business and they're trying to make money, but I think they don't want to make it where it's just like outlandish. And I think, it is what it is. This market that we live in, it's high. I mean, I get paid more because the cost of living in this market is what it is. So I mean, it's gonna come with the territory. I mean, it's I don't know what it's gonna be. Don't quote me, but it's gonna be a little bit. But I think it's gonna be reasonable, indeed.
But yeah, man, if we ain't got nothing else, man, you can go ahead and close us out.
Yeah, if you haven't already done so, you're not you don't follow Reedie Zee. Follow us on all platforms, especially Instagram. That's where we post any and everything, all of the news for the Commanders, and on Twitter, at Reedie Zee on Instagram and Twitter, at Reedie Zee on TikTok, at Reedie Zee on YouTube. Also, we have our shows with the Burgundy Breakdown on Wednesdays, where we have our collaboration with Juan Gotti Talking Sports, as well as John from the Ballin' and Burgundy podcast. We are your one-stop shop for Commanders news and insight. But feel free to chime in with us on Instagram. We respond to comments. We engage any questions y'all have, come through on these lives. Also, we're going to be starting to kind of like a Q&A. If you have a question or you want to say something, you want to have your moment to shine on the pod, we're going to give you that opportunity to come through and pop your stuff or whatever. But the next date that we are looking forward to will be May 14th, the scheduled release. And I'm looking forward to that, to see where we fall on these primetime games, as well as if we're going to get that overseas game, coming up this season. But anything else? Oh, hit our sponsors, Z.
Yeah, shout out to our sponsors, the Pie Guy, KB3 Events, Ray's Catering, and yours truly, Great Clothing Line. Check us out. We got a few pieces on pre-order right now. We got some stuff in stock. We rolling out our summer collection soon, finishing through the spring. So make sure you tap in with us, www.greatclothingline.com, in the form of GR8, as you see here on the screen, GR8clothingline.com. Until next time, Reedie Zee, we out.
Reedie Zee Shop. It's the Reedie Zee Shop.